Smile, you son of a... No! You bastard! I was so close! Well, that's the end of that. What next? What? Breath of Fire, Breath of Fire 2. Breath of Fire, Breath of Fire 2. Both great games, but which one's best? Once again, I'll be comparing the two games in several familiar areas to find out which one's the best. There will be a few spoilers along the way, so let's make a start. Plot. Many years before the events of the first game, there's a group of people known as the Dragon Clan who are able to turn into dragons. The goddess of destruction, Tyr, known as Myria in some versions, offers to grant any wish, which causes a war between the clan members. They end up splitting into two groups, the Light Dragon Clan and the Dark Dragon Clan. The war pushes the planet to the brink of destruction, so a warrior and his 7 companions seal the goddess away using 6 keys, which are then spread around the world. The Light Dragons are pushed into isolation, so they seal their powers away. Now, Zog, a descendant of the Black Dragon Clan, is trying to find the 6 keys so that he can unleash Tyr again. Ryu, a descendant of the Light Dragon Clan, is given the responsibility of finding the keys before Zog does in order to stop him from unleashing Tyr. You travel through the game collecting the keys as you go along, and eventually you do collect all 6, and big surprise, they get stolen off you, and Zog ends up unleashing Tyr, leaving you no choice but to beat her to defend the planet. The second game takes place hundreds of years later. The power of the dragons is all but forgotten, and Ryu is the son of a priest. He goes looking for his sister, but on his return, his family have gone missing and no one remembers who he is. He meets an orphan named Bo, and the two decide to leave town and start a new life. Over the years, they become very good friends, and a new religion, the Church of St. Eva, is growing in popularity. One night, Bo gets framed for theft, so Ryu hires Bo so he can go out and search for the real thief. In his search, he comes across a number of people who have lost their souls to demons, and by the time you find the real thief, the evil has spread across the world. As you delve deeper into what's happened, you find that a part of Tyr who was destroyed at the end of the last game remained and started growing in strength until it became a full-grown demon. The Church of St. Eva is a front for the demon, and it feeds off of the prayers of the followers. The followers think they're praying to a god who will one day lead them to an eternal sanctuary, but really they're feeding a demon that will one day break free of its confines, destroy the world and kill everyone. It's got a bit more of a complicated plot than the first one, but it's not too complicated, and it ends up being a massive dose of irony. Both games have the little twists and stuff as it goes along, but the second one also has a few things that happen along the way that you might not link together the first time round. Though the first one does have a fairly basic, straightforward, and sometimes predictable plot, the second one's got a much deeper, much darker, and much better plot. Point to Breath of Fire 2. Characters. As you progress through the games, there's a number of characters to meet along the way, and some of them join your team to help you win your quest. If they do join your team, there's normally a small section dedicated to them where you find out a little bit about the character, and it helps to build a rapport with them. It works perfectly well in the first one, but in the second, not only do you get that initial scene, there's normally a second section for them later on where you will find out about their past, what they've had to go through up until this point, as well as how what's happening in the world has affected them personally. It gives the characters much more of a personality, and you'll find yourselves caring for them much more than any of the characters from the first game. In the first one, because once you've done a section, unless the characters go with you, you probably won't be seeing them again, so you don't really get much of an opportunity to start liking the characters or getting any sort of an impression, so you'll probably just forget about them. In the second one, because they've got more personality, even if they're in it for a short amount of time, they will make an impression. Whether you really like them or want to gouge their eyes out, you'll probably end up remembering them. Some of the stuff that happens to the characters is quite sinister for a GBA game, and I was rather surprised to see some of the stuff happen. Best character out of the lot, though, has to be Cat. She's an anthropomorphic cat, no surprise, but she's got some hilarious scenes. She's not the brightest spark of the bunch, but she is also very good in combat, and she uses a staff as her main weapon. But because she's not quite that as intelligent as some of the other characters, if she comes across a problem she's not sure how to deal with, her response is to get her staff and whack it. The characters have much more personality, and because of the deeper plot of the game and the much darker plot, it gives the personalities much more opportunity to shine through. No surprise, point to Breath of Fire 2. Music. Where both games are ported from the SNES, neither one of them has a particularly fantastic soundtrack. Games like Golden Sun would have better background music, but that doesn't mean the music from Breath of Fire is bad. There's not a lot to say about it, really. The background music does really help to set up the atmosphere as you're playing through the game, and it does a perfectly good job in Breath of Fire 1. But in Breath of Fire 2, it probably does that job just that much better, and it's got some of the more catchy tunes that you'll find yourself whistling after you stop playing it. Point to Breath of Fire 2. Side quests and mini-games. Even though there's evil forces at work, there's always time to go fishing, and both games have got a fishing minigame. In the first one, it's pretty much just a case of random chance, depending on what modern bait you've got equipped. There are some nifty items to get from doing it, but it is just a case of push the button and see what happens. In the second one, it's a proper minigame where you cast a line, reel it in, and hope the fish take the bait. A bit like how it's done in Link's Awakening. Depending on the bait you use will depend on the fish you can catch, but there's also treasure chests and a couple of other things you can get as well. Other than that, in the first one of the characters is able to fuse with other characters, and there's 4 people around the world who will teach him those spells that you can track down. In the second one, there's 6 shaman to find. Each shaman has a different nature, and most of the characters can be fused with 1 or 2 of the shaman. If the nature of the shaman matches with the nature of the character, then it can be a good success. If it's a regular success, then you get a small stat boost, but if it's a great success, the character pretty much changes in their appearance and they can gain new abilities. Other than that, possibly the biggest side quest in Breath of Fire 2 is that you get to make your own town. Well, I say a town, you get 6 houses. But there's 3 different carpenters that you can choose from, depending on how well you do in a specific part of the game. Each carpenter makes the different types of houses, and they also come along with their own minigame. But what's really the best part about it is that you can choose the tenants that live in the 6 houses. I think it's something like 27 possible tenants, and each of the tenants will want one of the houses. Each house has 4 or 5 different people that can live in it, and you choose which one you want to go in there. Some of the tenants can be really helpful, like they open up an armory, or they'll do something for you, teach you spells or whatever. You've also got the useless ones, like a group of cats living in there, or someone that actually does sod all, and you've also got the plain stupid ones, like a woman that gives you a shot that makes you immune to poison for 1 battle. Really, the side quests in Breath of Fire are pretty good, but the second one has those same quests, improves on them, and then adds other stuff as well. Point to Breath of Fire 2. Wow, really not looking good for Breath of Fire at this point. Need to get 1 point though, at least. I'm not going to do a section on combat, seeing as both games use the turn-based random encounter style combat, so there's not really a lot of difference between the 2 of them. So in the second one, the spells are a little bit more visually impressive, but in the first one, as a descendant of the Light Dragon clan, Ryu can learn spells that enable him to turn into dragons. Each spell uses up a certain amount of magic, and once you've turned into the dragon, you stay like that until you either choose to return to your normal form, you die, which is unlikely, seeing as you're a dragon, or the battle is over. Because of this, you can do repetitively great damage, and it can make some of the battles become a little bit repetitive, and in some cases you are just so overpowered it's a bit ridiculous. In the second one, you learn spells to summon dragons, and each summon uses up your entire magic pool, so you get 1 use of great damage until you can find a way to replenish your magic. Because of this, there probably is a little bit more strategy required in the battles. Also, in the first one, all 8 characters go around at the same time, so you can switch between the characters as you're just running around, or during a battle if one of them starts to lose some health. You could just heal them, or you can switch them around. In the second one, only 4 of the characters go around at one point, so rather than switching, each character has an in-game ability. As an example, Cat. Her ability enables her to taunt the enemies into attacking her, so that if one of the characters is losing health, you can get them to attack her so that the other person will survive the round. Because of the shaman as well, once they've changed form, their battle thing can change as well. Like for Cat, rather than the taunt, she gets a charge attack where she charges for 1 round and then unleashes a much more powerful attack than her normal attack would do. So you've got to use a bit more strategy as to whether or not to use that or to use normal attacks. Yeah, a point would probably go to Breath of Fire 2 for battle because there's just a bit more strategy involved with it. Oh god, I've made it worse. There's got to be something that can give Breath of Fire a point. I suppose the blue fire that it has during the title screen is a bit cooler than the regular fire that Breath of Fire 2 has. And I suppose seeing as the games are made by Capcom, Breath of Fire has a cameo from Chun-Li, which is quite awesome, but it's still... flying. Nia is a recurring character throughout the Breath of Fire series, and in the first one she hails from Windia, where people are able to turn into giant birds, and at some point during the game she gains this ability. It's great. You can pretty much fly from anywhere to anywhere in about 15 seconds. It's a bit like the flying from Skyward Sword, only quicker. It's really good. You have a great sense of freedom, and it's got a pretty nifty tune that comes along with it. In the second game, Nina also comes from Windia, and she's actually a descendant of the Nina from the first game, but the people have lost their ability to freely turn into a giant bird. In this one, if they turn into a giant bird, then they're stuck like that for good, so somebody else turns into a giant bird to give you a hand. It's pretty much just as good. You call the person, they fly down, you get on, you fly off, it's great. Same sense of freedom, even better tune to go along with it, and it's great. But at a certain point during the game, you cause an explosion which unleashes some demons from the mountain, and because of these demons flying around, the bird in the second game isn't able to land anymore to give you flying around. Why the hell not? I mean, the demons don't even look that really impressive. They look pathetic. You probably, the bird flies down, get into a fight, kill them, done, fly off, wonderful. But no, they get in the way, it can't land. That doesn't happen in the first game. Once you've got that ability, you're off, that's it. You're fine, you can do it whenever you want for the rest of the entire game. It's so much better that way. Yes, the tune isn't quite as good, but it's still a good tune. Sure, in the second game there is a bit where if you do something, you can end up having your town fly around, which is quite cool in itself, but it's not as quick as flying around on the bird, and you have to actually be in the town in order to get it to fly. You can't just call it from wherever you are like you could with the bird. You also don't get a secondary tune, which is even better than the main overworld theme, which is not as good. I suppose there is also the whale that you can swim around on, but that's limited as to where you can call it as well. Plus the whale's called Grandpa, which is a stupid name for a whale. It's just not as good as the first one, because once you've got the ability, you've got it for good. In the second one, you lose it for a crappy reason. Point to Breath of Fire. As much as I like the first one, the second one is so much better. It's a prime example of how sequels should be done. Everything Breath of Fire does, Breath of Fire 2 does as well, does better, and then does extra stuff, apart from the flying, but nothing to be said about that. And it's such a great game. The games are often compared to Golden Sun, and I've not played Dark Dawn or Breath of Fire 3 Plus, so going by just the first two games, Golden Sun probably would be the better in terms of a series, but in terms of individual games, I would probably say that Breath of Fire 2 would be better than Golden Sun 1, mainly because Breath of Fire 2 actually finishes its own story rather than Golden Sun, where it spills over into the second one, but the second Golden Sun, The Lost Age, is definitely the better of all of the games. If you haven't tried the games and you like RPGs, definitely give them a go. They are really good games, but for now, a certain space pirate is going to get an ass kicking. See you next time.